The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, he'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
The South Kesteven series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Hello folks, spring is in the air this morning. That's a good thing. We've had a very, very cold winter here in the UK, and to be honest with you, I can't wait for the sun to finally peek its head out from behind those clouds and warm everything up. It's been really, really cold. You probably get that from some of my previous videos. We're in South Kesteven today, and we will be this weekend. We're hitting a parish here that's got two villages in it. One of them's called Westborough, the other one is called Doddington. So it's kind of no surprise that the parish name is Westborough and Doddington. Westborough and Doddington, Westfort and Dodders Dry Farm. This weekend on TVI we're taking a look at a couple more South Kesteven parishes. The area between Grantham and Newark is often overlooked, mainly because many who pass through it are using the A1. Should you ever be flying along that road in either direction, you'll be missing some pretty little villages, and a big one with a storied past. Unless you know them, of course. Here you get two for the price of one, because this parish covers two of them, Westborough and Doddington. Between them there's a pretty sizable population based around two fabulous old churches. It's all sited between the A1 and the East Coast Main Line. Westborough means Westfort, and it's where the parish origins lie, whilst Doddington was formerly a chapelry. The two were merged in 1931. Arguably though, it's Doddington that has more of interest here. It was associated with a now deserted medieval village called Stocking or Stockang, which was somewhere close to it in the early 14th century. Its precise location though is unknown. Also of the two, it was until recently the only one to possess a pub, the Wheatsheaf Inn, which stands opposite the Church of St James. Westborough has a former pub too, but that's long since been converted into a house. We've also got a cross to talk about, a pair of village halls, and a lot of lovely Lincolnshire scenery. You might, by the end of this video, be struggling to work out which one of these two you like better. I couldn't really decide myself. Let's get into it and see what's on offer. We start today's episode in the village of Doddington, which of the two is the furthest north. Doddington is linked to Westborough by way of a long straight road about a mile in length that runs due south. Here we're approximately 5 miles southeast of Newark and 8 miles northwest of Grantham. The A1 is just over a mile to the west. The village lies on a small hill, which is known locally as Lincoln Hill, even though we're nowhere near the city. Although Doddington is today joined with Westborough for admin purposes, before 1931 it was on its own. The two were merged in that year. It's a little odd perhaps, but Westborough was actually the main village around here. That's despite Doddington having arguably the more important features. That's quite a scathing note about the newspapers, wasn't it? Well, I guess it does happen in rural areas. You don't have to go to a city to find that kind of thing happening. But yeah, whoever's stealing it, give over, basically. Now, I was going to leave a card on this notice board here in this shelter. The trouble is, I've left my cards in the car at the moment, so I can't actually do it. No, not a problem. I'll find the parish notice board in Westborough when we get there in a short while. We'll continue this walk through Dry Doddington first, though. We still haven't seen any landmarks in this village. There are 3, though, of note, and they're all sort of clustered together right at the far end of this place. They are the Wheatsheaf pub, the village hall, and the church. Dry Doddington was, until 2023, the only village of the 2 to possess a pub. That was the Wheatsheaf, which dates back to the 19th century. This was a popular village local which closed its doors for the last time 2 years back, citing rising energy and operating costs as the main reasons for its demise. Known for its excellent service, the pub was a community establishment with a rich heritage. It had a beer garden, an outside bar, and a children's play area, plus it was dog-friendly too. Due to those rising costs, the pub owners said that the business was no longer profitable. Indeed, they lost over 150 grand over the 4 years they ran it. The pub's closure led to the formation of the SOS, or Save Our Sheaf, action group. Whether or not this will reopen at some point in the future remains to be seen. Now, as far as I know, Westborough has never had a school, but children were definitely educated here in Dry Doddington. It had a national school, which was built in 1872 on the site of 3 cottages known as Parish Row. Although it closed in 1961, the site of the building is still very much in use. It's important to note this village hall isn't the original school building, but it does carry a plaster cast marking the opening of it. It can be seen on the east-facing wall in the apex of the building that stands here today. As a school, it was extremely successful and was highly rated for many years. Unfortunately, the loss of a highly respected head teacher initiated a reduction of staff, and it closed for the first time in 1926. It reopened in 1929, but only for children under the age of 9. That setup continued until 1961, when it finally closed for good and all the pupils transferred to either Claypole or Long Bennington. 4 years later, it became the village hall. Today, it's for the use of Dry Doddington's residents, although it can cater for other surrounding villages too. As a result of its trustees sourcing funding, the village hall was completely rebuilt in 1996. In 2020, more funding allowed a revamp of the 25-year-old building into its present beautiful condition. And in front of the village hall, you've got this nice little communal area with a tree with a bench around it. Now, this bench is brand new, as you can see. It was placed here for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee 3 years ago in 2022. Lovely little place to sit, actually. I'll show you why, because if I turn the camera around, you've got this brilliant view of both the pub and the church and the other part of the village green, which is in front of the church over there. Absolutely fantastic. If that sun was out properly right now, this would look gorgeous, wouldn't it? Well, it still looks pretty good, and we're going to find out exactly how good that church is too, by the way. You might just be able to see from here that that church tower is leaning very slightly. Well, how much is it leaning? Let's find out. Now we have the church to take a look at. This one's dedicated to St James, and it's a Grade 2 listed building dating from the 12th century. The tower is early 14th century work. The whole thing was thoroughly restored in 1876, but it's also had more recent work funded by the Heritage Lottery that brought the tower back to its former glory. The tower, by the way, is far and away the biggest talking point here. You can't possibly fail to notice it has a westward lean. In fact, the lean is an impressive tilt of between 4.8 and 5.1 degrees, and that's far greater than that of the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Italy. That's tilted at 3.97 degrees. The tower is thought to have been originally straight, but for some reason it moved in the late 19th or early 20th century. It was underpinned in 1919 and appears to have been stable since then. The 14th century bell is still rung occasionally. It was cast in copper and tin by John of Stafford, who owned a foundry in Leicester, where he was mayor in 1371. His name and the date 1350 are stamped as an inscription on the bell. John also worked on the bells in York Minster and also made the bell in Allington's church nearby. The church contains an RAF memorial to No. 49 Squadron. An aircraft, a Lancaster bomber no less, crashed near the village on the 26th of November 1944. The aircraft was called O Oboe. It had only been in the air for a few minutes before it crashed, laden with bombs and fuel. Whilst 5 members of the crew survived, the wireless operator and air gunner were both killed. Okay, we're pretty much all the way around dry Doddington, but of course this is only half the story as far as this parish goes. There are 2 villages here. The other one is called Westborough. There's a road that links them. It's about a mile long, so I'll see you at the other end of that in a moment. Now we have a short drive between the villages. Dry Doddington means dry estate of a man called Dodder. I've got no idea whether or not Dodder would have known anything about a fort just down the road, but that's what Westborough means. It's literally West Fort. However, the fort would have predated Dodder himself. The reason I know that is because the structure in question would have been Roman. Westborough originated as a Roman settlement, and it's changed a bit since those times. Dodder was likely Saxon, and as such a small Saxon farming community had been established on the site of the present village by the time of the Norman conquest in 1086. Let's check it out. And effectively it's a similar walk to the one we've just done. We're going down the main street, which is Town Street over there. It's a long straight road, leads to the church. We'll come back via a footpath to make it a nice little circle. Now here, where we are right now, the junction with the road to Dry Doddington, there's actually something to talk about here, even though you wouldn't necessarily know it. These houses on either side, well, they contain something of a little secret, a religious secret. Let's discover what it is. The first thing to talk about in Westborough is something you can't actually see. On this corner where the road from Dry Doddington meets Town Street, there used to be not just 1 but 2 religious buildings. One was a Roman Catholic church, the other was a primitive Methodist chapel. Both have long since gone, and it's all housing these days. The same could be said for the rest of Westborough in general. To be honest, beyond the village hall and the church, Westborough struggles to have much more worth looking at. Nonetheless, we'll have a walk and see what we come across. Westborough, by the way, should not be confused with the city of the same name in Massachusetts. On the left, as you walk down Town Street, you pass by the village green. That'll be our end point later, because there's a lane that forms a nice little loop around the back of this road. You'll note there's a cross base on there. Here we have Westborough Village Hall. Like its counterpart in Dry Doddington, this used to be something else. However, this time I've got no idea what it was. I can only make an educated guess. If you look at its side wall, the one that faces north, you'll see the bulk of the building's frontage is an extension. Underneath the newer part, there appears to be a much older building with an apex roof. I would suggest, from more than 4 years of experience doing this now, this might well have been some sort of farm building or perhaps an old smithy. The Westborough villagers are, of course, the ones that will know best. If that's you, let me know below. Are my suspicions correct? Further down the lane, on the right-hand side, you'll see a road called Baker's Lane. That name suggests there was once a bakery in these parts. It's likely, but I couldn't find anything to confirm that suspicion. However, I do know a little bit more about one building on the end of the road. So again, it's another pretty small village, this one. Not taking me all that long to walk to this point here. I've been about 10 minutes up to now, so that shows you just how much there isn't to Westborough. However, there used to be something here on this corner that would attract a few people. That right there, my friends, is a house these days, but that's not what it's always been. This house is called the Old Tavern because originally it was a pub. Dating from the 18th century, this used to be the Blue Greyhound. It closed in 1956 and has since been converted into a house. As a pub, it was tied to the WWII Limited brewery chain, which later became Flowers. Although it's a residential property now, it has at points also been used as a B&B. Westborough is mentioned in the Domesday Book as already having a priest and a church, as well as 120 acres of meadow. We already know it was a Saxon settlement at the time of the conquest, so that's clearly not a fabrication. However, nobody knows when exactly the first Saxon church was built. It was, though, definitely on this site right here. 2 small circular openings in the north wall of the present church are thought to be remnants of it. They can be seen better from the outside of the building. The church that we see now, All Saints, was built on nearly its present scale in the early 13th century, with a nave of 3 wide bays and narrow aisles. It also has a long chancel without aisles and a western tower. It still has its original 13th century octagonal font, which is beautifully carved with interlaced designs. In the late 14th or early 15th centuries, further building work took place here. Transepts were added to the north and south of the nave roof was raised to provide a clerestory, and the small chapel or sacristy was added on the north side of the chancel. A porch was also built over the south door. There are interesting old oak bench ends reset into more modern seating in the chancel, one showing the devil licking the backs of those at prayer. The walls have much original plaster, and 2 painted panels remain, the figures of time and death. In 1951, a large restoration project was begun to restore and repair the church. Being so near the River Witham, damp was always a problem in this building, and it still is now. The churchyard is also pretty interesting. It's unusual to find one that has a medieval cross complete with its base, shaft and knop, but there is one here. It's thought that the capstone now lies at the north end of the village. The cross was most likely used for religious purposes, such as preaching, and as a central point for processions, proclamations, and announcements. From the church, we head up that back lane now, which will take us to the green and to the site of Westborough's other cross. However, along here, I found something else of interest. Okay, so basically we're just following this footpath back to the green where that cross was that we saw as we came into Westborough. And as I was walking along here, I noticed this on the right hand side. I've no idea what this is because this didn't come up in any of my pre-episode plans. It seems to be a memorial to a crashed aircraft. Now then, there's a plaque on this side here which I can't really read. I'll try and read it as best I can. On January the 15th, I think that says, 1945, Lancaster bomber crashed at this place 8:30 at night, and basically that lists the crew that were killed as a result of the crash. Brilliant. And that's a bench. I suppose you can sit on that. There is a gate here. I don't know why I didn't think going through there. Why didn't I go through the gate? I'll probably see the plaque a bit better if I do that. Village idiot, I call myself that for a reason. Here we go. This will tell us better. Yeah, 15th of January 1945, Lancaster LM619 Unit 166HCU crashed at this place at 8:30 at night, and those are the unfortunate members of the crew who were either killed in action, that's what KIA means on the right hand side, or injured in the case of Sergeant GF Ashby. So there we are. Lancaster bomber crash site here in Westborough. I knew nothing about that until I walked past this very memorial. Just goes to show you can't possibly know everything doing this. This cross, of which only the base remains now, is thought to be 15th century in origin. It has 4 steps, the lowest being about 6 feet square. The base represents the remains of the medieval village cross, and on the top is a modern dressed stone in place of the socket stone. By the side of the road, elsewhere on the green, is the socket stone of another cross. Obviously not in situ, it may have once formed part of the one in the churchyard. Okay then, that'll do us for Westborough and the entire parish of Westborough and Dry Doddington. Did you decide which one you liked better? It's a hard choice, isn't it? Tomorrow we're off to one of the biggest villages in this area, a far cry from anything we've seen today. See you down the road in just 24 hours' time. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.